Good morning, Vietnam. Wrong place, wrong time. Hi, I am Miss Galveston, coming to you from a secret location in the middle of nowhere. I may or may not go by the name Jules, but you can always believe that what I'm telling you is the truth, and I found information to support it. Okay? How are you, thing one? Thing one, you too have been doxxed, whether you know it or not. Hey, Charlie Faith, how are you? Z Storage. If you live in a small house on the side of the ocean, you love Z Storage, right? You got to put all of your life's treasures in Z Storage. Hey, Dorian Valentine, welcome. Elizabeth Gregory, my friend, how are you? Texas Lassie, welcome. Love your name. And Sandra Chapman, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sandra. Happy birthday to you. How's that? Miss Sandra Chapman is very wise because she survived so many birthdays. So welcome to you. I hope your hangover's not too bad, my friend, although I suspect you probably don't drink. Hey, Jennifer Lawton. Well, my voice cracked in the middle of my opera song. I'm so sorry. Hey, Jennifer. Not so basic Brooke. Welcome. Happy. Nancy Schmidt. Welcome. And Muffin Top, love you, and the rest of my friends. Okay. You are so welcome, Sandra. I'm so sorry that my voice cracked. I tried to recover, but it probably did sound awful. I had to switch to my head voice real quick. It still kind of made my throat feel weird though. So sorry about that. Okay. Now then, all that foolishness aside, hey, Karen Gillette, welcome. I still got more people to say hello to. And Barry behind bars, he's singing for you. Go ahead, Barry, sing happy birthday. I'm teaching Barry to sing happy birthday, and I'm teaching Barry to sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. He's so funny. When I go up to his cage and I sing to him, he gets really still and he watches me so close. And I can hear him in the middle of all of his noise. Every now and then he'll say, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, Barry, happy birthday, pretty boy, pretty boy. Okay, enough of that. Now then, maybe what I need to do, maybe I need a bird cam. You know how Gray has the camera on his two little dogs? Maybe Barry needs to be famous. Should we make Barry internet famous? Would that be fun? Then y'all could hear him. He is singing so much, Sandra. He was actually very quiet when I started singing happy birthday. He got excited. If y'all could see him, he's bouncing like he's dancing while he's doing it. Barry, you look like you may be a little manic there, big guy. You okay? You okay? I know. You're a pretty boy. Calm down. Calm down. You're a good bird. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about Barry Morphew. Are we really talking about Barry Morphew, or are we going to talk about Judge Lama and Eytan and Nielsen? Right? Barry behind bars. That may be the only time we get to see Barry behind bars, but at least we got one. Right? Okay. Now then, have you decided to be quiet? No, he's still being disruptive. He got some new branches. I bought him some new perches that are made from real tree branches, and he loves his new branches. So he's jumping from branch to branch and chews on them, and he loves them. I wish that I could let him go and he would fly away, but he won't leave his cage. And I think that's how I ended up with him, is somebody let him out and he couldn't eat. He got, he was dying, and he saw, a middle-aged blonde woman and said, "Oh, that looks like someone who may give me food." So anyway, I've been thinking that maybe now in Galveston, we have indigenous parrots. I don't know. A lot of people didn't realize that the United States has a couple of enclaves where there are actual, wild parrots. And the ones that there are some in Florida, they're a bit bigger, but the ones that we have in Galveston, they're like parakeets on steroids, right? They're not as big as like a green parrot or an African gray. They're not that big. AJ, I'm sorry. Okay, the bird is driving AJ crazy. Okay, 1 minute, AJ. I'm gonna actually move Barry outside where he can enjoy the sunshine and AJ can enjoy the podcast. 1 minute. Okay, I'm gonna have to cut out the front part of my video. How are you doing now, AJ? Is that much better? I'm very sorry. It was fairly chaotic, wasn't it? Okay. Now then, it almost feels serene and relaxing now that Mr. Barry is, out where he belongs. Now then, so let's talk a little bit about what took place yesterday. I've had time now to go through Lauren Scharf and some others that talked about things that happened yesterday. Like everything, once you get into it, then you uncover, it's a little bit different than on first glance. So, it wasn't as simple as the prosecution making another motion to dismiss. It was a 5-hour hearing. That's an awful lot going on in 5 hours, right? I sincerely doubt that it was only about getting the case dismissed. Now then, huge strike against the prosecution. Why can't the prosecution team be on time? Why can't they be on time? Why can't they be prepared? Why aren't they offering expert support, or at the very least, competent investigators? We don't know. And we don't know the direction of this whole thing has been backwards, upside down. There was no grand jury. However, I'm going to tell you, listening to the evidence, seeing it as it was presented in court, there is enough there to go to trial. And I know Scott Reich. Oh, by the way, it's not Reich. He's not like Der Fuhrer. You know what I mean? His name is Reich, not Reich. I heard somebody saying Scott Reich, R-E-I-C-H. No, that would be wrong. So with Scott Reich, he and I met Julie when I was in Colorado, and she is delightful. And we had a great time talking, and as a group, visiting. And he's not I'm not putting words in his mouth, but in my opinion, after listening to his input, my opinion is I don't think he's very impressed with the skill level of the prosecution. one thing that I heard him say that I would absolutely agree with, based on my training and profession. He said that, when you have somebody that the arrest affidavit looks like a novel, right? Then maybe this is someone that doesn't really have a very good grasp of their supposed evidence. Maybe the evidence is very weak, or maybe there are holes where you didn't investigate enough to tie your concepts together. And so you're having to do way too much explaining, right? So when you're writing like technical writing, you're writing a research report, or you're going to do an article that'll be published in a book or magazine or something. One of the big important parts of the whole editing process is to, especially in technical writing, is to be pithy, right? And the goal is to use as few words as humanly possible and still get your point across clearly. The more words, the greater the confusion. I have repeated this to parents for the last 20 years. When you have a child, especially a child who's struggling with mood or behavior, academic stuff, social stuff, having trouble getting along with friendships and whatnot, we parents, we tend to talk. We talk it to death, right? We want to talk. Teenage girls are the worst about wanting to talk something to death. Talk. And we know that it's really good to talk. We want to facilitate talk, but it's not enough just to make noise with your, mouth. Your communication has to have a point. When you're talking, you need to be conveying a bigger concept, a larger idea, with as few words as possible. If you're an adult and you're talking to a child trying to offer guidance or some type of, reward or punishment type contingency, you want to limit the words. And that's one of the reasons why a behavior plan with decided upon or agreed upon rewards, that is why that is so powerful. Because if the child does the agreed upon goal, they earn the already agreed upon reward. If they do not do what they're supposed to do and have agreed to, then it is their responsibility that they did not earn the reward. They can't get mad at mom and dad. They can't get mad at me. They can't get mad at the teacher. They know what the rules were. They agreed to a plan, and then it becomes their responsibility to do it and earn the reward, or not do it and not get the reward, right? So when we do these behavior plans and whatnot that are very powerful, always based on reinforcement, positive, positive kind of reward system. One of the first things that I say to the parents is, be careful about talking something to death. Just talk. You've got to remember, with a child, someone who's, let's say, under the age of around 14, 15 years old, although some researchers would tell you 12. If they're under about 14 years old, their first language is play. That's really it remains the communication device that is second nature to them, that they're born with, an instinctive ability to communicate. And so for adults who are now, well ensconced in higher cognition, and their concepts are formed in verbal language, then for us, we do rely on words more, right? And so it may be, when something upsetting happens, it may be really comfortable for us, the parent, to say, well, you did this and you did this. And why did you do that? And you should have done this. Maybe next time we can do this, do this. And pretty soon It's like the kid on Peanuts, you know, Charlie Brown's, you know, the mother, the teacher in the background. Wah, wah, wah. Wah, 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 wah. They're not hearing you. There's no communication going on at all. Kind of like somebody that goes live and just attacks 25, 30 people and rants and raves. After, you know, 15 minutes of that, your brain and ears are tired and just wah, 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 wah. You're not hearing anything. So fewer words, which serves the function of making you be careful about which words to use. And then the net effect is you provide a technical report that is easily read. It's just the facts, ma'am. You reduce all of the adjectives and adverbs, and the person that is reading it, when they're finished after a couple of pages, they've got a really good view of the problem, the concept, whatever it is that you're describing. That's what a preliminary is, right? That's what the arrest affidavit is. Just the facts, just the evidence that broke the basic facts that support an arrest, right? There's going to be many, 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 many more pieces of evidence and testimony. But for the arrest affidavit, you just have to meet a minimum standard. Something that proves, oh yeah, judge, no doubt this person was involved in something nefarious. So why do you write a novel? What's the purpose of that? Why didn't you just list your facts, describe how you verified them in chain of custody, and then quote the charges? Why did you have to turn it into like a reality TV show kind of thing? Inquiring minds want to know. So there is some concern, and I think I've heard Scott Reich, who's a Colorado attorney. I've heard him describe it in a couple of ways on different occasions. He once said, you know, that if you see something like that where it's just an enormous mass of information that was way overdone, sometimes that is done to cover up, you know, lack of competence. On the other hand, sometimes you get that because someone is so invested in the case and they really want to make sure that it goes to trial. And maybe they put too much in the arrest affidavit rather than just meeting that minimum standard. So I think what ended up happening, the problem with the arrest affidavit, I mean, it was protected for how long? And once we finally got into it, we found out why. Barry Morphew pointed the finger at Sho's daughter's boyfriend. How crazy is that? That was in the arrest affidavit. And you think, wow, but you know, that could be gossip. That could be gossip. That doesn't have anything to do with whether or not he may or may not have hurt her, right? That's just kind of like someone could point a finger at me and said, "Oh, I know her. She stole a diamond ring. I knew her in a year ago. She went into Zales and she stole a diamond ring that was worth $50,000. Does that make it true? Well, of course not. It does not make it true at all. And so it's kind of how I look at it when Barry says, well, you better check out Shoho's daughter's boyfriend. You better look at him. He's a little shady. Better look at Jeff Puckett. Better look at Morgan. That means nothing in a court of law. It means nothing. And it damn sure doesn't carry any weight in an arrest affidavit. But what it will do is it will create a slanderous type of situation where the person pointing the finger, making these comments that are misleading or out lies, they are putting themselves in danger of being charged with slander, defamation of character, especially with someone that has a professional license. That's a serious, serious crime to commit. Look it up. So Eytan and Nielsen, you know, the girls, the way the story goes is that the girls are the ones that found Eytan and Nielsen, that Barry was despondent, he was depressed, he was unhappy, and he was just kind of yuck. He just wasn't doing much. And that the girls took it upon themselves to go in search of a real attorney. And he had court-appointed attorneys, but the girls had the money, and they're the ones that went in search of attorneys. They do end up coming up. They had a connection to the Patrick Frazee case. They had a connection to the other man that said that his wife committed suicide. So they got him off. So they're fairly well known for these types of, you know, can I go out on a limb and say cases that stink of domestic violence? I mean, I don't know if a jury says that you're not guilty. Does that mean that that's true, or does that just mean that they didn't have enough evidence to make, you know, to give a guilty verdict? But anyway, so they had connection to Colorado cases. The girls could have easily done a Google search and found these cases and who was working them. And they just so happen to be super lawyers, right? I'm not being smart aleck. I mean, they really are the best right now. So he ends up with these great attorneys. You compare that to the apparent problems with the prosecution. I don't know if they're problematic. Maybe this is all a ruse to try to make them, you know, underestimate the attorneys. I don't know. I can't imagine that. I just can't. I think the prosecution is who they are. But the first live Zoom meeting that the prosecutor, the new one, the older guy, the first live that he was on, he looked like he was in his small child's bedroom. And I thought, oh gosh, this isn't looking good. Like, you didn't even make plans for what your, you know, like the background on your Zoom call. So that was a little bothersome. Now, today we find out, yesterday he was 30 minutes late for what is the biggest case in Fremont County and Chaffee County, right? The mismatch between the defense's apparent skill and knowledge of the law compared to the prosecution's apparent skills and knowledge of the law, it's so dramatically different. So now, to be fair, I don't think you normally would see the prosecution jump up and down and get real passionate. Although Juan Martinez did, right? Juan Martinez was definitely awesome. But the prosecution is coming from a much different position. They had the burden of the proof. And so they have been spending a year or two researching and have acquired, or hopefully they've acquired, a mass of evidence that they're just confident. So they don't get all upset and freaked out when the defense attorneys play their tricks. Now, defense attorneys do get very passionate. Defense attorneys do play a lot of games. They do try to mislead and manipulate, throw out red herrings, get focused on a lesser detail. These are all tricks, ways to get around, the impending guilty verdict. I said before, and I believe this, when they go to trial, if it gets there, I think that the circumstantial evidence against Barry Morphew, they will get a conviction. The way that this case has been handled, they've been the evidence just hasn't really been distributed very well. It's people have gotten focused on a few of the points without the bigger picture. But what those police cam videos did, and we saw them on AK's channel, where Macy's boyfriend, his dad was in a couple of them. We saw the sheriff that night. We saw George Davis with Barry. What you saw that night was a game changer. When you look at those videos, there were so many people that sent me messages going, oh, you know what? I really didn't think they had enough to get him. But the little bit that I saw on those police cams, now I'm thinking, no, something definitely strange. Definitely strange. He's walking around the day his bride goes missing. He's walking around in Denver, Broomfield, throwing away large bags of clothing, large buckets of something in 5 different dumpsters. Why? It's very odd when you see the actual video. It wasn't like, me and you. We drink a Diet Coke, we pull up and we toss the Diet Coke bottle out into the trash can, and then we take off back down the road, right? That is not what was going on with Barry Morphew that day. He had bags full of what appeared to be clothing. Bags. So there are many things that continue. Listen, one of the things that came out yesterday is the prosecutor said that they completed their investigation related to the DNA. Okay. And he's talking about the DNA that was found on the glove box connected to these sexual assaults. Okay. It was not a match. It was not considered a hit. It's a partial match, meaning a few of the points that they connect were there, but not all of them, not enough to say it was this person. Maybe it was a brother. Maybe it was a first cousin. Maybe it was just somebody that shared the same kind of strange genetic makeup because of an unusual blood type. But it gives a defense attorney enough to demand question of the evidence. And so they're using this. They got DNA from a guy where there's 3 sexual assaults, couple in Arizona and one in Chicago. And they're using that to mislead people and say, oh, no, there was a rapist in her car. No, there wasn't. Or, well, maybe there wasn't. But, maybe it was a rapist that had the same color hair, eyes, and same height as the mechanic that worked on her car. So the point is a partial match really is not anything in terms of evidence. What it is a simple avenue of investigation. It just gives another avenue for the investigators to go down, collect evidence, question people, and then see if they can connect point A to point B. So that is what the prosecutor said yesterday, that their investigators, they have gone down those 3 paths of investigation, the 2 sexual assaults in Arizona and the one in Illinois. They've gone down those 3 paths. They have ruled out Barry or people that would have been connected to Barry or Suzanne. They've ruled it out. It's not going to be the DNA that was found is not something that could be matched to anybody that has had DNA taken from them related to the disappearance of Suzanne Morphew. It's been ruled out. So they're waiting. They said in court that they completed the investigations and they had all been ruled out. Whoever left that was not a part of the rapes or whatever. Okay. They were still waiting on DNA to be completed that's in the lab. And that takes me right back to the blue shirt. And I was sitting there, and I've heard Lauren Sharp say, I don't remember I'm talking about a blue shirt. And that's okay, because the way the brain works. But I was absolutely in court. I absolutely heard them ask about the blue DNA, the blue shirt, and testing for DNA. And Linda Stanley herself said that it's still being processed, quote unquote. They said it. And one of the reasons I remember it is because I just it shocked me that they brought it up in court, because I had been told about it by someone else. And part of me thought, how's that possible? Like, I don't believe that. I'm not sure I believe that you found something of such significant evidentiary value and they're not doing anything with it. I can't believe that, right? That's the natural kind of skeptic in a normal person. And then when I'm sitting there in court and they absolutely, in no uncertain terms, they address it, I was like, okay, well, I stand corrected and I'm a believer. I'll never question you again. So part of me wonders, is that what we're still waiting on? Is that turquoise shirt? Is that the item that remains in processing, right? That could be really significant. So the prosecution did not get excited and upset about the whole DNA thing. The prosecution was ready and told the judge, hey, judge, we've completed our investigation. That DNA that was found is not connected to the sexual assaults in these 3 other states. We've completed the investigation. It's been ruled out. We are certain that DNA is not connected. Right? So if you consider that, and the judge heard that, I mean, the judge is listening, but then the defense is already pushing, and so they say, hey, this bozo, these prosecutors over here, they are missing deadlines. They're late to court. They're not doing their job. They're not doing what they're supposed to. We have been so reasonable. We haven't, tried to hurt them, but by God, judge, it's time now. They should have to answer for all the underhanded tricks they're doing. I kind of think it's incompetence. And so we want these charges dismissed against Barry Morphew. And if you can't dismiss the charges, then at least give him back his $500,000 bond. They actually asked them to return the $500,000. So after reading the tweets and the information from yesterday, I'm not too worried. I don't think Judge Lama is going to throw this out. I don't think so. Just because the prosecution has completed their investigation and they were definitive in saying that DNA is not related to these reported sexual assaults. That is very interesting, right? Barry Morphew has a very powerful defense team. Superlawyers, the real Superlawyers. Let me see if I can find the magazine article. Hold on. There you go. I'm not kidding. The one on the left with the dark hair, she's firecracker. When you go in, when you watch her, she goes for the jugular. She is aggressive. She is passionate. There's a lot of emotion. The blonde on the right, completely polar opposite. She is very calm. She is very reserved emotionally. And I saw her on about three different occasions. I made little marks in my notes. I'll have to go look, but 3 different occasions, she was very frustrated with the firecracker. She was really, really frustrated with Eytan. At one point, Drew, the blonde woman, she even kind of turned her back to Nielsen and not Nielsen, Eytan, and almost refused to talk to her. They definitely had a disagreement, and I remember what it was over, because I thought, okay, something just happened here that I don't understand, but clearly it's a thing because Drew is pissed. It was absolutely, it occurred as Iris Eytan was pushing about the DNA partial match. And during this really passionate, heated, exchange with the investigator, and I think it was Cahill, the information came up about the blue shirt. And she pushed and she pushed, and Cahill was just saying, that is not my responsibility. I was on maneuvers with the National Guard. I was on leave from work. And he was being really calm, and she was really, really, really forceful. And Drew at one point stood up and leaned over the table toward her, and you could see spoke to her really firmly. And then it was only, seconds that Iris Eytan calmed down and let it go and sat down. And when she sat down, Drew Nielsen kept her back turned to her, didn't look at her. She was putting things away. There was no doubt that whatever Nielsen was doing, or I'm sorry, Eytan, whatever Iris Eytan was doing, Drew didn't agree with it for some reason. And it was actually Drew. The judge tried to intervene a few times to get Iris to calm down. I mean, it was a few times he said, okay, wait a minute. I'm confused. Say that again. So she's chaotic. Iris Eytan is chaotic. She interjects so much emotion. She talks very quickly. She gives you a lot of facts in a short period of time before there's a waiting moment for the witness to answer. And so the net effect is chaos and confusion, and everybody in the courtroom is going, oh, wow, this is like very energetic, but what the hell's going on? Okay. But Drew, whatever that was about, Drew Nielsen she did not like it. She was uncomfortable with it. And she ultimately ended up, like I said, standing up, leaning over the table toward the podium, said a few things. Iris looked over at her. She said something else, and she's got this really stern look on her face, which was different because most times she's really passive. She had this really stern look on her face, and it was just minutes that Iris gave it up and sat back down. I'll go back and I'll get my notebook and go back through my notes and see if there was anything else that I wrote around that, episode. Another area that they misled, they being like the reporters, that it was inaccurate. They said that Barry prayed, right? They said that at the end, that when he found out, that he was going back to jail, he prayed. Well, maybe if you were behind him, maybe he looked like he was praying. both hands were flat on the table. He had pushed back away from the table, but his hands were still like stuck to the tabletop. And he had his head down. He bent his head down, and his shoulders he was sobbing. He wasn't praying. He was sobbing. It took him, it was really difficult to watch. And he was like that for quite a while, but when he finally was able to kind of collect himself and look up, he had a look of fury on his face. So, people experience things, and maybe their expectations color, what they see or hear. If I was sitting behind him, perhaps I would have thought he was praying, although there was no doubt that his shoulders were shaking like as he was sobbing, right? But I don't know, maybe they thought he was. That's what they reported. But I was at the fairgrounds the last day, and the camera was at the front of the courtroom. And so you could see the front of Barry. You could see, it was like if you were standing in front of the table that he was sitting at. So you could really tell what was going on. So anyway, so yesterday the defense did ask for dismissal, but I think I think that they were, they're wanting some type of punishment on the prosecutors. I'm at the point that I don't know what the prosecution is doing. I can't figure out if they're trying to be bumbling, apparently unprepared, if they want to look that way. I can't figure out if they're just outclassed and they don't know how to manage a murder trial. And I don't know if maybe under normal circumstances, they're really, really great at what they do. But with all the media attention and the high profile attorneys out of Denver, that they're just freaked out and nervous. And when people get, anxiety can be performance enhancing, correct? But what happens when the anxiety gets too big? I mean, you do reach a point of no return with anxiety where it stops, supporting behavior and will actually become an impediment to behavior. So you don't know if maybe they're just freaked out because they think, I can't do this. I can't do a murder trial. I can't do it with the two best attorneys in Colorado and perhaps, in the United States. And I don't like this. And I don't like all these people watching. And I don't know what to do. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. And maybe that's why they seem so unprepared. There isn't just one attorney on the prosecution. Well, yeah. And that was the other question that I had. Was there only one prosecutor in the courtroom yesterday? Yeah, Karen. He did have his hands out of his pocket in that moment. Hey, Muffin Top. Is Jules still in here? I'm not sure she's still in here. Yeah, I don't know either. I was hoping to find somebody who had been there yesterday. But anyway, 30 minutes. He was 30 minutes late. And I can't understand if this is supposed to be the trial of the century, then why in the world isn't Linda Stanley in the courtroom? Yeah. So I don't know. It's very, very strange. Very confusing, but all right. So, I wanted to address this. I'm not quite as freaked out as the request to dismiss the case as I was earlier, because I was able to get some more information. And the prosecutor answered and said, no, we completed our investigation, no connection, and we're still waiting on the DNA to get back from the lab. But he didn't seem worried. He didn't seem concerned about it. And and the big part of it was that, you know, Nielsen and Eytan are asking for sanctions. They're really irritated with the prosecutors, and they feel like the prosecutors are not handling the case very well. And you know, to be fair, it does look like they're unprepared. It does. I at this point in the beginning, I was being really positive and hopeful and thinking, well, maybe this is like their strategy. At this point, I'm laughing. I'm like, no, can't be a strategy. There's no way at this point to be 30 minutes late. That's so unprofessional. That is not a strategy. So, all right, everybody. Well, I think at 12 o'clock. Oh, look, Scott Peterson hearing already started. So Scott Peterson hearing starting at 12 o'clock. We're 6 minutes late. So I'm going to leave you in peace, and we will talk about Scott Peterson later. Talk to you later. Bye.